Time to talk a little men's golf. Let's hear it for Coach McGraw here with us this evening. Men's golf, boy, in the fall, certainly a challenging schedule, kind of like when we talked with Coach Maxwell, but some real highlights as well. Coach, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Great to be here.
Great, good to have you here. We got a good crew who's already turned in some questions for us that we'll get to next segment. But let's just ask kind of what's on your plate these days. You've got fall schedule is over, spring's ahead. Just had National Signing Day. What's keeping you busy moving the program where you want it to be these days?
Well, you've played a fall season, so you know you haven't played quite half our schedule. Usually we play 4 tournaments in the fall and about 6 in the spring. So we didn't play like we wanted to this fall, that's for sure. We obviously can play better than that, and we know that. And that's what's going to make this off season so very important for us. I think we need to make a lot of gains over the break.
We know I'll ask you more about this match a little bit later on, but you know, you say you can play better when you beat the number 2 team in the nation, Arizona State. I think that shows a little bit of what the program's capable of.
No doubt. We played a great championship. We got beat in the finals for the second consecutive year. So we got up to the trophy, almost to the trophy ceremony. Didn't quite make it, but it was a great victory over Arizona State. They are a packed team. They've got a great team, and I know that gave our guys a little shot in the arm. We've had a couple of guys out of the lineup that should probably be in the lineup, and they know it, and so I think that's probably motivation for them. But beating Arizona State was a big boon for these guys.
So right now, as you kind of think about this point, again, not quite halfway through the schedule, what would you say, you know, a lot of youth, a lot of players who can grow. What's the scouting report on your team right now as you see it, and where do you want it to be as you head into the spring?
Well, we've had one of our better players, Drew Wrightson, has been out with an injury. He's an all-conference golfer, and to be an all-conference golfer in the Big 12 Conference, you're a very good player. He made match play in the U.S. Amateur. He's a great player. We really didn't get to have Drew very much this fall. And he did not play at all in the last tournament. So I think getting Drew back in the lineup, having a couple of guys develop over the break, we're doing a lot of work over the break that is not necessarily golf related. It's more physical related, you know, with the body and creating some explosiveness. So we've got a lot of that. The scouting report would be we've got tons of talent. We just didn't put it together for the best fall. And each of the last 2 years, our fall was not nearly as good as our spring, so I'm banking on the fact that we're going to build some momentum going into the spring. Well,
and you know, you mentioned that. You know, Coach Maxwell was talking about that as well, and you know, with a strong Big 12 match play, you had to win in some tense circumstances. You know, kind of the things that you can only experience by going through. How beneficial was that for these guys?
It's huge. The match play championship. A lot of guys say I don't really like match play. It's not the normal stroke play that we play. But the great thing about match play is every hole, you either win the hole, tie the hole, or lose the hole. There's no, I mean, it's like there's an outcome on every hole. So every hole has a pressure putt. Every hole is a pressure something that puts your game on the line, and you don't get that in stroke play as often. So that part you can kind of work on your competitive skills and learning to overcome pressure feelings and situations. So I really love that about that. I have a great attitude about the Match Play Championship, and mainly because we've always played well there. But I think the kids feed off of that as well.
Yeah, I got to think as a coach you do like that because you get to see over and over how they step up, how they perform in those situations.
100%. Yeah, it's a really big deal right there. And the most important juncture of the season, the national championship, you end on 3 matches if you get all the way to the finals. So it's really important at some point in the year. You don't get very many reps at match play. We did a lot of it here in Waco leading up to that tournament. I know that helped us.
Well, a lot of growth there at the end. Looking forward to that. So, if you would, what are a couple things that about the program, what you saw so far this year, that you liked that they can build on, and what are a couple things you want to say, like, hey, we need to build on this and do better?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is the area of short game, which I think we started the fall not in a very good place. And I think all of the guys made some gains there, and that was some intentionality with our practices. So I know we've improved there. I don't think that we have too many other things where you'd say, okay, those are major weaknesses. But short game and putting was a problem early in the fall. We made some gains there, and so I think if we can continue that over the break. But we also have some physical things we're going to do over the break.
So, you look at as we head into this stretch, what all are you allowed to do with your athletes as you head into this portion of the schedule as you want to get ready, through the holidays and ready for the spring?
Well, once December 4th rolls around, that'll be our last day to practice, because then there's like a dead day or two where you can't study days, and then they go into finals. So we have until now, between now and December 4th, to actually put them through workouts. We even in the off season, though, like right now we are in off season, we're allowed 8 hours a week, and 6 of those we've chosen to have 6 of those be working out. So Isabella Balcells, we call her Izzy, she's our trainer, and she's putting them through some very intense workouts, mainly to create explosiveness and some club head speed. And this is when you make those gains, and then hopefully during the season, when you're actually competing and traveling, you do enough workouts where you could actually maintain that speed that you've gained over the break. So the guys are in some pretty intense workouts right now. And then the other 2 hours of the week are somewhat they're all golf related.
Yeah, hopefully they see those gains when the ball jumps off the club and when they're out there in the spring. Hey, by the way, we don't always talk about Bob Baker, our engineer, but we don't always have a sport that he directly contributes to, like he does you.
Yeah, I see Bob out on that mower every day, and I keep on thinking, he just told me just a moment ago, he said, I've learned to mow in straight lines, and he has done that. So he does a really good job for us.
Yeah, we call him the G-Man, and he does some impressive work, Bob. It's we're glad we can highlight Bob.
There
Normally behind the scenes. We don't have the camera on him, but it's great to see. Talking Baylor men's golf here on the Baylor Coaches Show, live from Rudy's. Great crowd here. We talked to Coach Casey Maxwell from Equestrian earlier, now talking to Coach Mike McGraw from Baylor men's golf there as well, in between fall and spring play. And Coach, so I guess, we got to put you on the spot here with some audience questions.
Boy.
This group, they're pros at this. They had some good questions for Coach Maxwell earlier, and we'll see what they have in store
Certainly.
for you here.
Let's do it.
So Gail says, first off, congratulations on beating Arizona State, number 2 in the nation. That's great. So let's go back to what you're talking about in Big 12 match play, and just the differences between that versus regular play, and that each hole there's a winner and a loser. So she's curious, and this is a great question. Does that affect your coaching? Depending how does that impact your coaching, depending off if it's regular, just match play, or if it's stroke play?
Well, that is a good question. Stroke play and match play, they don't even resemble each other at all because of the difference in every shot showing so much pressure. But one of the things I like to do with a player is I like to get him where he doesn't play off his opponent. A lot of times you think in match play you would play off your opponent, but I would rather tee off first, which if you earn the honor by winning the hole before you tee off first, and then you control the match, and he has to play off of you, and you don't want that. So I try to get to guys not to overreact to what somebody else does, because it might dictate what you think you should be doing. If there's a correct way to play a hole, I want to play it that way regardless of what he's doing. And so I kind of get them to not pay attention to their opponent as much. Most people would say just the opposite, but I think it's really important that you play your own game. Yes, occasionally if he hits a ball out of bounds and he's going to have a stroke and distance penalty, you'd like to play a little safer. But honestly, I just want you to play your own game the best you can.
As you said, that is maybe different than what most of us would think. How much do you learn about players' mental game and that mental fortitude in match play? Is there a difference in that match play versus
There is a
play?
little bit of difference, but I think a lot of times the true competitor in a kid emerges when he gets to play a match. I'll never forget when Luke Morgan was a freshman playing, and he wasn't really supposed to be in the event. Somehow they got in the event, and he played the number 1 ranked amateur in the world. And he took that guy to the last hole, a guy that was playing for Texas, Pearson Coody, who's playing the PGA Tour now. And it kind of, the light bulb went on. He thought, if I can play this kind of golf against this player, and match play tends to kind of, it's hard to win by large margins in match play. But when he recognized that, he thought, man, I can do this. So I think that's part of kids' competitiveness emerges when that happens.
Do you find sometimes, if you have a bad hole, you can just flush it? I mean, that's a benefit, right?
Well, that's another thing.
Yeah.
The thing about match play is, yes, you lose that hole. Well, okay, you might lose by 4 strokes on that hole, but you only lose 1 hole. But now you go to the next hole and you try to win that hole. It's really the attitude you ought to have in stroke play. I made a double bogey on that hole, but that's over. I'm going to play the next hole. Unfortunately, kids carry the double bogey with them. And the truth is, the double bogey is not really hurting your score, but how you're handling it is hurting your score. You got to teach them that. So match play teaches that. I can fresh new start on every hole.
Hey, great question, Gail. Thank you very much for that. Steve wants to know those 3 national titles. Coach McGraw, has any other college coach surpassed that number?
No current coach.
No current coach.
I'm the only current coach that's had 3 national championships. But the guy I worked for at Oklahoma State, he won 8, and before him, Dave Williams at Houston won 16. So I'm never going to reach those titles. But no current coach has won 3 national championships.
That's great. That's a great record. Coaches are never satisfied with that, though. It's always that you're going after that next one, right?
Well, if winning the national championship was your yardstick you used to measure success, then I've been a failure 26 times. So I don't want to know that.
Yeah, a lot of pretty good coaches could say something like that too. Great question, Steve. Ben Hagens wants to know, there's always new rules with the NCAA that we get to learn, sometimes by the day, maybe sometimes by the hour even. I don't know. It's sometimes. So he wants to know, can you please explain the NCAA new rules about transfer portal and reducing the roster from 12 to 8?
Okay, I don't know. I'll start with the roster going from 12 to 8. I don't really know the reason that they did it. But if you think about it, yes, now it's going to create a logjam in the transfer portal, which I'll get to in a second. So there'll be a lot of athletes in this transfer portal. That'll take a while to work itself out. But once it does, it's actually going to be very good for college golf. They've brought the roster cap down, but they're giving the schools the ability to fully fund all of those roster spots. Like right now, we have 11 guys on the team, but we can only have 4.5 scholarships. But if they bring the roster down to 8, but you could fund all 8 scholarships, that's really, in the long run, going to be way better for college golf. And Division I Power 5 conference teams are going to be way stronger. There won't be any dead weight on any team anywhere in the country. Every player will be competitive. It's just the start of that's going to be rough. Now, as far as the transfer portal, it's just a place a player puts his name where he can actually talk to other schools. And then once you're in that portal, the coaches can actually contact you. And so it's kind of an easier way to get players to be able to transfer.
Interesting. You think about recruiting, and maybe you come close on a kid, and you hate that you missed out, but certainly you wish him well. But in this transfer portal era, do those relationships, do you ever find that they come back to benefit around there? Because maybe a kid goes somewhere and it's not the right situation, but they remember the relationship you built.
They do. I haven't had any currently any transfer portal kids actually play at Baylor. I've had one that came here and he lasted 10 days and was gone. That was 3 or 4 years ago. And I have had no transfers out of the program.
That's great.
So in 10 years. So we haven't had anybody leave. So I don't have a lot of experience with the transfer portal, but I've always had a policy the last million years that I've coached. If you lose a player, he only had one choice, and that was to go to one school. He couldn't go to all these schools. And so the fact that he chose another school doesn't change all of those great qualities that endeared you to him or that attracted you to his game to begin with. He's still the same kid with the great grades and a great family. None of that changes. So why would you want to stop that relationship? So I've always made a habit of, when I lose a player, he gets a handwritten letter from me that tells him, I thank you very much for letting me recruit you. You're going to have a great career. It always comes back to benefit you if you do that.
That's great. Well, it's funny you mentioned you haven't had anyone transfer out. You've got to think, I know you're a published author, podcasters. I got to think there's probably a lot of coaches who would love to know your secret if you ever put that out there. That's rare in this day and age.
Well, it may be. It is very rare, actually. And in the transfer portal era, I don't know if I'll ever get to keep that record unblemished. But I would say this. It's very important that you respect and fight hard for the relationships. So not every one of those kids in 10 years at Baylor has been a great, wonderful, touchy-feely situation every day. A lot of them have had some tough times, and I think that great relationships and long-lasting relationships are forged through the struggles, through the friction, through the problems. But if you fight for the relationships, you have way less chance of a kid wanting to leave your program.
Well, I've certainly seen the results of that. Hey, great questions, Ben. And Roy has a question. With so many companies that make golf equipment of various kinds, How does that work for what the players use? Do they choose? Do you choose? What does that look like?
If a kid wants to use a broomstick to putt with, and it has no brand name on it, and he putts well, I'm all about that. I don't really care what clubs they use as long as the equipment is suited for them. And with modern day technology, there's no reason you shouldn't have perfectly fit golf clubs for your body, your swing speed, all of that. So I don't have any. We have great relationships with a couple of companies that will give us tour-like service. But if a kid wants to play a different brand, as long as it's fit correctly for him and he loves the equipment and he's got confidence in it, I'd let him play it.
That's great.
Good question.
Good question, Roy. So just about any brand at the Baylor bookstore that you carry conceivably could be utilized there. Thanks very much. A couple more minutes with you, Coach, here. I want to ask you, we're going to look ahead to the spring. I know you've just had signing day. You're getting ready for the fall. But I want to ask you about, for the spring rather, but I ask you about an alum of the program, Johnny Kiefer.
Oh, yeah.
Great run on the PGA Tour Americas. Tell us about what he's doing.
Well, Johnny's getting ready for his first year on the Korn Ferry Tour. He's got full status. He earned that through the PGA Tour Americas this summer, where he played in 11 events and was in the top 5 9 times. He is so fired up and excited. I would be too if I could hit it 330 yards down the middle and I was a great putter. I would be just as excited as he is,
yeah.
But I don't do that.
Yeah, well, good. That's great to see him having that kind of success at the next level. We'll be keeping our eye on him. About what's it mean to have a guy like him as you point at recruits? And you've had a lot of great players over your career.
Well, what makes Johnny different, he's not just a great player and he's not just a hard-working kid. He has truly some of the highest character of any player I've ever coached. And people are going to find that out when they see how he handles himself out on the PGA Tour. He's going to have a lot of fans. He's great for Baylor, and his legacy is strong here, and it always will be.
Always fun to see some of our green and gold alums there at the next level. Well, Coach, we're looking ahead to the spring here a little bit. You had that strong run at Big 12 match play you want to build on. What are you most looking forward to seeing about your team as you head into spring, and what on the schedule is going to give you some of those challenges and opportunities to
Well, the opportunity is we play Palm Springs in mid-February, our first tournament. There's 24 teams in this tournament. So I feel like if we do a good job getting ready for that tournament, and we've got guys that have played well in the lineup that have played well there before, we've got a chance to get a lot of wins against some really quality teams, and I'm really looking forward to that. Plus, it's not bad to be in Palm Springs in February.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to that. We go to Cabo 2 weeks later. Fantastic field, great golf course, obviously great weather. So the spring is filled with great opportunities. We just need to play like I know this team's capable of playing. And as I said, last year and the year before, we got better throughout the spring. And I feel like if we do the same thing, we'll be just fine.
Well, looking forward to that.
Thank you, Derek.
Best of luck to you as you head into this season, getting ready for the spring and what's ahead. Same with Coach Maxwell. Appreciate it, and we'll look forward to talking to you again here in the spring about how things are going.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Coach Mike McGraw on the Baylor Coaches Show, talking men's golf